And we're live, so happy Wonder Wednesday, everyone. I hope that you're all doing well and welcome back to our Floxies community. If this is your first time here, we are a global community for women in UX UI design and Webflow development, and we host these live streams for free every week, every Wednesday, inviting influential speakers from either the design or the Webflow space to come and teach our community. We really love having this little habit, and if you watched our episodes before, you know that we use a little metaverse to host the stream. I would also love to know who's attending, who's here in the chat, because something that I really love is for you guys and gals to interact as much as possible. This is your 60 minutes. This is your chance to learn as much as you can from our guests, but also to kind of network and have a chat and see who else is attending the event with you. We're a community after all. So let me get into our gather space. Here we go. I'm just going to put myself down there in the corner and let's join the stage. Right. So what you see here is our co-working space. And this is where we have our focus hours as well. And I'm just going to go ahead and join the auditorium where you can see all our guests. And our speaker. Hello, hello. Happy Wonder Wednesday, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. And welcome back to our very special guest speaker today, Lizzie. Hi, Lizzie.
Hello. How you doing?
All good. It's so great to have you back. We absolutely loved your event last week. I will put a link in the chat for if you haven't watched it or if you weren't there, definitely catch up because it was a masterpiece. And I'm so looking forward to today's episode or second lesson, however we want to call it. But yeah, so grateful to have you back.
It's very good to be back. I'm very much looking forward to it.
And I guess, for those people that weren't here, maybe, would you like to quickly just sum up what we discussed last week and maybe just introduce yourself once more?
Sure. I'd be very happy to. So last week we were in part one of designing our portfolios, and we're starting off with thinking about our personal branding. And what we kind of got to by the end of it was this sort of realization that it's more holistic than maybe we initially thought, and that actually thinking about personal branding, we also have to think about ourselves in some ways. So we were looking at things like our vision, our values, the kind of characteristics that we want to display. And we went through a Notion template that is free to use. So and Claudia
Yes,
will share all.
I'll show that in the chat. I'll go and find it and put it in the chat.
Yeah, and I'll be sharing this week's links as well, because we've got a whole brand new template to work with. So to introduce myself a little bit, my name's Lizzie. I'm the founder and director of Jammerbuck Studio, which is an agency designing and building websites specifically for purpose-driven organizations and charities. My passion is all about changing the world by using the skills that I have to offer, and also empowering women in design, which is why I'm here.
Kind of goes well. It goes really well with our community.
It does, doesn't it? So this week is part 2 of designing your portfolio, and the sort of the cover, the advert puts mood boards as being the sort of the big like draw, like, oh yeah, let's do more mood boards. But before we do mood boards, we're actually going to look at some more soul searching type activities. We're going to be looking at real keywords, which is kind of our link between the verbal articulation of what we've got with our vision and values and characteristics. It's like the link between that and going into the visuals. So it's really exciting kind of set of words that we're going to be uncovering in this process. We've also got an exercise to help us sort of get this thing we're calling like a brand essence or a brand concept. And I'm going to go into more detail about that when we get to that point. And then I promise we will look at mood boarding. Mood boarding is actually one of my favorite design tools. I use it throughout the entire design process, and it's so helpful for like untangling or problem solving specific design problems throughout the process. But we will look at that as well. So maybe without further ado, shall I share my screen
Yes,
and we'll get
please.
into it? Okay.
And just
Um,
like by a raise of hands or just virtual pixels, I guess, how many people here have completed last week's exercise? I can.
you get extra points if you've done it.
Okay. So some people, sad faces, half and half. Emma's done it. Yes. You can use the emojis as well at the bottom, like give us a wave if you did complete the exercise. But I'm also gonna, I did share the link in the chat. 70%, 80%. All right. Tori's done it. Great. Awesome. All right. Just
Great.
checking, just like I have some comebacks from my old teaching life.
I know. Lucy in the chat is all like, I will do it. I swear I will. I'm like, yeah, yeah. Okay, let's start with. I'm just going to share my screen.
Somewhat there is my favorite answer.
Somewhat there. I would like to just start with where we started last week, looking at the Affirmation Foundry, which is an initiative that me and my team have started. So the Affirmation Foundry is all about empowering women in design. And the idea is that we have an affirmation every week that encourages us on our design journey. And this week's affirmation is, I have the skills and intuition to solve any design challenge. And I want you to just let that sink in a little bit, because I guarantee that at some point today you're thinking, I don't have the skills to solve this design challenge. I know that I was. And sometimes it's really helpful to have that reminder that even if the skill is finding someone to help you, or if the intuition is looking it up on Google, or it's showing it to someone else, that's still using your skill and intuition to solve that challenge. So I'd like you just to internalize that a little bit as we carry on. And mood boarding as well is also a really helpful way of solving design challenges. Anyway, let's go to resources. And we are into week 2. So if you'd like to follow along with me with the template, you can go to this free template. It will take you to personal branding part 2. And it is a Notion template. And there's also a Figma file in there. I'll put it in the Floxies chat so that it can be shared all around. And just pop in, £300 in that bit there. Actually, no, don't. Zero, just don't pay anything. It's free.
No, but pay what you think.
Yeah. And I will bring up
I'm
the
sharing it in the other chat as well. Amber from Atlanta joining us there on YouTube. Miron on LinkedIn. Hi, friends. Welcome, welcome.
amazing. So identifying visual keywords, distilling a brand concept, and creating mood boards. Do you know what? I always think that mood boards should be one word, but then you get the red squiggly line under it. I'm like, why is mood boards 2 words? It's so weird. Anyway, so first of all, before we get started, let's just get comfy in our seats. Sit up a little bit, take a nice deep breath. And if you can, just put your feet on the floor just so you feel a bit grounded. That was just for myself, by the way. Let's start with visual keywords. So, as I was saying, when you've got like your vision, you've got your values, you can start having visual ideas. You can start thinking, oh yeah, I can see a landing page for my website, or I can really see like the kind of colors I want to use and things like that. But what can be really helpful I think we were talking a little bit last week about this sort of portfolio indecision, where you're going down one design route and then you're halfway through and you doubt everything and then you start changing it and recreating it all over again. For me, something like visual keywords really helps me stay grounded in my decision-making process, and it can help mitigate that sense, that kind of loss of direction when you're thinking about your look and feel. Because when we're thinking about values, you know, they can be quite subjective with regard to what they look like. So what we're trying to find is words that are less subjective so that you can really start to nail down what something looks like. So we're going to take the characteristics that we came up with from the last exercise. Now, if you haven't done that, don't worry. We can go back and you can do that stage. So you can bring them into this one. And what we're going to do is be finding words that are as visually tangible as possible. And in order to do this, what I've got is this little exercise I like to call a senses filter, where it's essentially you take the characteristic and you put it in the column and think about, okay, what does this characteristic look like? If I could actually see it with my eyes, what would it look like? Or how would it sound if I could hear that characteristic? What would it sound like? And so on with taste, smell, and touch as well. And this is kind of like a word association exercise. And we're thinking as many words as possible. I would say minimum 10 or 15. And just to help things flow, it's like no wrong answers, don't worry about your spelling, all kinds of things like that. Get your thesaurus out so you're really like pushing your vocabulary, I guess. And if English is your second language, like do it in the language that you feel most comfortable in as well. And I will show you an example of this. And hopefully it will all start to make sense as we go on, what this is all about. So my characteristics that I came to from last week's session were kind, witty, and engaged. So I literally went through each of those ones and I thought, okay, what does kind look like? Like if I could see it, what would it look like to me? And I went through each of them. You can see that I didn't manage quite the 10 to 15 thing in all of the column. And I went through it with each of the ones. And it's funny because straight away you can see like really different types of words coming off the back of the different characteristics, and which actually put images straight in your mind. And that's what we're trying to aim for, is that, like I was saying about that link between just the idea and then the visuals.
Just 1 second, Lucy. Lucy, do you have a question? Oh no.
Sorry, a quick one. It's just, do you also do this with clients?
I do,
Or
yeah.
for yourself with clients, or actually with them?
I actually do it with them, yeah. They love it. Oh my goodness. It's such a fun process. Except we don't do it on Notion, we use paper and post-it notes and lots of scribbling. And it's so good doing it with, I did it not long ago with a writer, and the words she was coming up with were just incredible. Mine were all like big, nice. Hers were like effervescent. It was so good.
I love that.
Yeah.
What's paper? Do you have a link to that?
What's that?
What's paper? Do you have a link?
Oh, it's, yeah.
How do we use I guess the first exercise to fill this in, or is there a particular section? Yeah.
It's here. Yeah. So this is the bit that's empty, ready for you to go. So put your top characteristic in.
Okay.
The first number one, and then just get them in. And you can just write it out on paper as well if that's easier, because sometimes filling in little boxes on the screen isn't as what's the word, conducive to flow. But yeah, so that's just the example. You can close that one down if you don't want to be bombarded by my ramblings. Then once you've had that big old session, it's really fun to do it with someone else as well. So if you do want to team up, I would highly recommend that, because you get some really interesting things. I've just noticed a typo, but I'll fix that. Then it's picking 3 from that great big load. So you could look at all of them, pick out any themes that you see. If you notice that you've written some things down twice or 3 times, then that might be something that's bubbling up to the surface. And you want to pick out 3 that aren't too similar. You want something that gives a rounded picture. So you wouldn't want to say pick big, bold, and massive, because they're all kind of saying the same thing. You'd want to pick 3 that slightly complement each other. And potentially you could write a line or 2 about what you mean by it as well. So these are the 3 that I landed on: warm, fizzy, and structured. And for me, I instantly get visuals in my mind, or I know that I will be able to find visuals in my mind off the back of those. Does that make sense? Does that?
Yeah, it does. It does. Fizzy Lizzie.
Great. Fizzy.
Ah.
All right, then. That is visual keywords. Super fun. Brand concept. Okay. For your brand concept, what I'd like you to do is think of your brand as being like a delicious meal, or like a nice winter warming stew, or perhaps a cake, or something quite delectable that you can munch on. And basically all of your vision, your values, your characteristics, and your keywords are kind of like the ingredients that make up your own recipe. And what we're aiming for is not something that's bland and tasteless, unless that is actually what you want to convey. But we're aiming for something that's distinct, potentially like refreshing, or maybe something that stands out from everyone else. And in order to sort of like articulate the overall flavor of it, like, say, I could describe a stew as being a warming winter stew, and you would kind of know what I mean. Or I could say like a slightly surprising cake, then you'd be a little bit concerned about that, but you'd at least get a sense of the overall direction of what that is. Excuse
Did
me,
you
I'm just going to
see?
mute.
Yeah, no
Sure.
worries. Did you see what Rue posted in the chat? So when she read warm, fuzzy, and structured, which were your 3 keywords, her first thought was a crochet blanket on a cold winter day. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, that's great.
A fizzy cake. That's like a prosecco cake in my head.
Oh, yes, please. So when we're coming up with a brand concept, yeah, we're thinking about sort of the overall flavor of what we are trying to express with our brand. So in order to do this, I've done the absolute classic thing, where you just put everything in one place so you can see it all at one go. That for me is it's like kind of like laying out your ingredients so that you know what you're making. And then it's about distilling it and condensing it into something sort of short, tangible, and directional. So here's my example of me writing out all my bits, all my ingredients. So all I've done is just copied and pasted from the other exercises into this section. It'd be cool if it like auto filled that, wouldn't it, from where you've got to so far? Oh, maybe that's version 2. And I could focus on particular flavors within my vision, values, characteristics, and keywords, and that would emphasize different aspects of my brand. So, for example, if I took the growth and the sort of warmth from over here and the sense of like fulfillingness, I would have something that's quite cozy, something that's quite loving and kind and friendly. Whereas if I focused more on the sort of environmental change side of things and choose the words with like fizzy and witty, it would feel a little bit more active and urgent. So even though it's the same ingredients, putting them in different orders and emphasizing different things can create a different flavor. I hope that the what's it called? The
That's
analogy is holding up.
yeah, the associations. Yeah, of
Yeah.
course. Technical question from Rue. I think it was in the chat. Yeah. Does this auto populate, or do we have to move these over manually?
We'd love it to auto-populate, but no, you just have to copy and paste them in. Sorry.
Paper.com.
Paper.com. Copy, Command C, Command V. If you're on a Mac. Yeah. So then it's about sort of taking that direction and distilling it into a short sentence, a couple of words, something that just sort of sets the direction. And you might want to come up with a few directions and see what sits authentically with you and what you want to express. And I'd say that there's not really wrong answers, and also you can develop this over time as well. So if you're a bit like, oh, I don't know what to do, then I think just do it. Just do a bunch of things, see what happens, and pick something and go with it and see what happens. That's my advice for life. Just do something and see
Keep
what happens.
flowing, keep flowing. We often say it
Yeah.
at Floxies, just keep flowing, keep that.
Don't stop because
Yeah.
you don't get it. Yeah. Yeah. And our old friend ChatGPT can help with this. So you can give them all of your vision, your values, your characteristics, and your visual keywords. And you can say, can you help me distill this into a few words? And you might need to have a little bit of a back and forth, but it can be super helpful just to get that moving. So, for example, if I was to use the ingredients of like the growth and warmth and the fulfilling bit, I could have a concept that is just really simply kind design. Lizzie Curtis, kind design. Or wholesome by design. Lizzie Curtis, wholesome by design. No, I'm not too sure about that one.
Doesn't
Environmental change. Yeah. Sparking change. I quite like that. Sparking change.
Yeah.
Designing differently. It feels a little bit close to think differently. Anyway. Or structured, engaged, and sustainable.
Think different. No, there is a slogan called "Think
Yeah,
Different."
yeah, there is.
Which one
Yeah.
is that?
I think it's one of the big names. One of
Apple.
the big ones. Yeah. Apple.
Oh, wow.
Sustainably creative. I think what I quite like about that is it speaks into this idea of sustainability in the environment, but then also as like work-life balance kind of thing. And everyday better. Okay, so there's some examples, and that's the kind of length of concept that we're aiming for. It could maybe go to 4 words, something like that, but we're talking like short, sharp, pithy, directional, actionable. So for my examples, I'm going to go with sparking change or spark change. All right. Any questions? Good.
All good. All good. Let me check the other chat. Yeah, everything's fine.
Great. Okay. This is like slightly less soul searching as the previous week. Last week was all like asking the questions. This is more about trying to articulate the answers. So there is definitely a slight difference in like the vibe of it, but I think you're going to enjoy it. I think you're going to love it.
Yeah, I think this is more like this is the time people get together and we do it hands on, and you just get cracking.
Yeah, less of that introspection, more of that. Okay, what is it then? Like, let's put it into actual words that we can all get around and understand. Yeah. Okay. Mood boards.
Adrija, did you have a question, or was that just a flying hand?
Oh, no. Hi, Claudia. Hi,
Hello.
Lizzie. So, actually, my friend was trying to enter the meeting since the past half hour.
Oh,
So, I had been trying to, like suggest her various ways. Then I almost failed because she could not enter. So, I was like, okay, I can ask them if they could.
sure. Is she in our Discord?
I don't think she is, because okay, so I tried to share with her the Discord channel link, but somehow she could not enter. But now she says that she's into this meeting. I think so. So, anyways, then only you pointed it out that okay, what's
No,
that?
no worries, no worries. And
Yeah.
actually, if anyone is watching, and if you would like to be here in the gather with us, if you're not part of the community, apply via our website, which I'm gonna share. I don't know why I'm looking at my other monitor. The camera is here. Apply to our website, and I'll approve it to you. So next time you can join us directly here, because the link to the gather is actually in our Discord. So thank you so much for that, and yeah, I'll share the link.
Yeah, thank you.
No worries.
Cool. So, mood boards. Mood boards isn't just a collection of pretty images. A mood board is actually a really super powerful tool to help us, as I said before, solve design issues. So they help us. I really think it is about, in some ways, like refining your expectations for what a design is going to look like. And they also provide a springboard and inspiration. And like I said, you can make a mood board at any stage. You don't need to feel locked in by your mood board. And you can also update them or duplicate them and create new versions of them as you go along. And I have created a very, very simple Figma template on the Figma community for you to get started. So if you click that link that's in the Notion, which I can also share, not on the Notion as well. I think, is that the link there if I share that?
Let me see if I can help you.
That should hopefully do it.
Figma community file. Yeah.
Yeah, is
You
that
got
going to
it.
work?
Yeah. Well
Yeah.
done.
Excellent. And I will just share that screen as well, so you can see what it looks like.
Great. So look at this beautiful full room.
So it's a really, really simple template, which is designed just to be literally a springboard. You write here your focus area. We'll look at that in a little bit. Pop in your concept here, and then your keywords here. So before we dive into that, then let me take you through some helpful tips for mood boarding. Number 1, I recommend being really specific about your mood board and creating a separate mood board for the particular design challenge that you are trying to solve. For example, if you are partway through designing a web page and you need to redo the footer or something, you can go and mood board footers real quick. But I would all the time have in mind your concept and keywords while you're looking for references, but then create a mood board specifically on that one element. You can also create mood boards obviously on the look and feel of the whole thing, but I kind of feel like when you're really getting into the details of a design, getting really specific about the area that you want to focus on is really important. And also, this is so interesting, but I feel like the more mood boards you create, separating out, say, type, layout, color, individual UI elements, the way you treat your images, specific components, or even your personal logo, if that's something that you were going to create. The more separate mood boards you create, the more unique your design will be, because you're drawing from so many different references. You're much less likely to accidentally copy just one design. I've seen that before where you're like, I love this website. You put it on your mood board and then you're like, I have now recreated that website. Oh no. But a way to avoid that is to really take the element that you are inspired by. But then it's really about being rooted in your concept rather than being rooted in being inspired by something. I'm not saying that it's not good to be inspired by something. Absolutely. You definitely be inspired by everything. But your starting point is your concept and your keywords. That is where you start. And I'll talk a little bit more about that right now. In point 2 is use your concept and your keywords. Okay, this is where it gets really good and really exciting. How many of you have ever started a design because you've had an idea of what it's going to look like, and then you start trying to design that idea? I definitely have.
Can see me.
I do for sure.
Mirella says, and by the way, hello, Mirella. Great to see you here. Carmia, you make me laugh. She says, love the concept of separate mood boards.
Yeah,
So powerful.
it is very powerful.
Camila says, I think my struggle is I add in too many inspirations and then can go in too many directions and be overwhelmed. Any tips for that?
Absolutely. I will get onto that. I will most certainly get onto that, because that is a real issue for sure with the mood board. Yeah, so we can start with our inspiration, we can start designing, but then we might get partway through and realize, oh, I can't actually quite visualize this part of my idea. I knew that I had a bit of the idea that was really good, but now I can't actually get it out of my head. And oh no, I'm a really bad designer and this is looking terrible and nothing's going right. But what I think that is, it's not because you're a terrible designer at all. It's because you haven't given yourself enough stepping stones to move on to the next step. And this is what a mood board helps us to do. So we're not just picking pictures we like. We're not just picking some inspiration, and we're not just picking one website either. We're getting loads and loads of references. And I think I'll say it a bit later on, but it's about, for me, it's about getting quantity of references over quality initially, and then refining down. Oh yeah, that's in step 3. Don't jump ahead. Stay on step 2. Step 2. Okay, so we're starting with our concept. So to get started with starting with your concept, you can try taking one of your keywords. For example, let's take mine, which is one of mine is warm. And then if you think about the specific mood board that you're creating, so thinking about that focus area, if I were to say my focus area is going to be color, I would then go through all of my inspiration sites, design inspiration sites, everything, magazines, photos, whatever. And I would think about what colors express warmth to me. And then I would gather those references. Or say then maybe if I was thinking about my typography and I wanted to express fizzy and warmth potentially, or that might be too complicated to get them both in, but maybe let's go with warmth again. I would then look at type through the lens of trying to express warmth. And let's do another example of a layout. I want to mood board a header section. And instead of just looking at header sections that make me feel good about myself, I will actually think, okay, what headers express the keyword of structure? How can I really see the structure? And then go through and find references that really bring that out. Does that make sense? So we're really being quite objective about it, but it's also quite fun because you don't actually know what you're going to find. And I think that's what really excites me. Okay, this is what really excites me about this process, is that sometimes when you go with just the first idea that you have, you get a nice design, you get the idea that you did, it's great. But when you go with this process, you could land on something that you had absolutely no idea you were going to do, because you're drawing from all these references that are all over the place. And that for me is really exciting as a designer, because you actually surprise yourself, like, oh, I didn't know I was going to use that font, that's cool. But it really, like, it's expressing what I need it to express rather than it's going on things that I already have in my head. So we're gathering lots of references and then refining.
Yeah, and I guess that's really, really great as well to find extra inspiration from your own self, as you're saying. It's like I didn't know I could do that. I didn't know I could generate that idea by myself. Because sometimes you just end up being in a cycle of, oh, all my websites look kind of similar, or I keep on following or adding elements that I know how to do, and so all the structure is kind of the same, or color palette and whatnot. Whereas this is like really pushing your, your stimuli to get from all sorts of directions, which is really great.
Yeah, yeah. And I think this idea of like gathering lots of references, it's another exciting thing is that it means that you're constantly looking at great design and constantly trying to draw from the world around you, like, oh, maybe that would go into one of my mood boards because that says structure, even if it's in a different sector. Now, actually, I'll go on to that in a sec, so I'll just slow down on that. Okay, so we were talking about that. What about getting too much inspiration and then not knowing which direction to go in? I've got here, start to notice patterns or themes in all the things that you gather, and then refine it down to around 6 images that are really cohesive and give a strong sense of direction. So you've got to be avoiding mixed messages, because this is kind of like a visual instruction manual to yourself. So don't like put 2 references in that contradict each other, because then you're going to be like, well, I don't know which one to do then. So imagine that you're going to give your mood board to another designer, and they need to take that mood board and know which direction to push the colors in. So if you have a mood board that has like 40 different colors on, but you roughly know what you meant, then it's not going to work. Whereas if you give a mood board that you really get really specific with the kind of vibe that you want to create, and then pick out the colors as well, it's straight away a much stronger mood board. And I've got a little example here of a color mood board. This is going on with the keywords warm and fizzy. And you can see that I've drawn references from painting as well as some graphic design things as well. Which moves on to the next section, which is annotating. I find this is one of the most helpful things to help push the process forward. It's just writing a little note why you chose it and what you think it's doing to express that keyword, or what you think it's doing. Even if your keywords and you're thinking further back to your vision and values as well. You're saying this is encapsulating it, and this is why.
Yeah, it's good documentation as well. Does that come from your no-code brain as well? Like having good documentation to remind yourself of why you picked certain things, or why did you do certain things,
It's 100% from my teacher brain. Like if it was left to me, I would be like blah 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 blah. But it has to be when I'm teaching, I'm like, annotate your mood board.
Yeah,
Then I've
it's
got
so
to
helpful.
myself.
It's literally so helpful, because then you can go back to a design. And I think, Emma, you were saying this today in our chats as well, like going back to a design that you've done maybe 6 months ago, and you're like, why, how did I do that? And so it's so good to see as well, like from your notes, exactly why you thought that 6 months ago and where you are now today. And so it's really good to annotate things, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. And in fact, that's maybe a good exercise for this, is to imagine yourself in 6 months' time when you've forgotten everything, and just think, will this be helpful? And the more helpful you make it for your now self, even more helpful it'll be for your future self as well. So when you're annotating, thinking about why you made certain choices, what sparked the idea for you, because that will again remind you, what keyword do you feel like it's expressing, and what design principles can you see at work that are just exciting you about that. And number 5, use diverse and reputable sources for your references. So we're not going to do a bog standard Google image search. We're not going to have some weird ass PowerPoint whatever business going on. We are contemporary, cutting edge, exciting designers. So the references that we are looking at are contemporary. They're from the top agencies, and they're also not just from one source. They're from all over, and they're in different sectors as well, because you can sometimes get some really interesting design solutions just by looking over, oh, someone's doing a really cool textile design over there, and I can actually draw something out of that. Or maybe you're a photographer. There's so much, like me and Claudia, both wandering around a graveyard on Monday.
As we would, you know.
And like so much typography. It was like just we did some sketching there as well. And it's like, what if those kinds of activities you can pull into your processes as well? So don't just go on the one design inspiration site that you usually go on. Try and broaden what you're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
And don't forget also to save all of your references that you're working in. So you can use Pinterest and upload your own references and make all folders and stuff to organize stuff. If anyone's got any other recommendations of how they manage all of their bits and bobs that they collect, that'd be great as well.
Lucy says, I love checking out fancy alcohol websites for inspiration. So cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah, that's a good one. Let's put
Yeah.
packaging.
Yeah, I love beer cans just for illustrations and branding.
Yeah, for sure. Super inspiring. So let's look at the template again quickly. I put together a color one. I'm on the wrong screen. I put together a type one. Now this is one that actually surprised myself. I was looking at warm initially, and I was like, oh, I saw this font, and I was like, I actually feel like I'm getting hugged. Right now, I'm just being hugged by that font.
By Herbie.
Yeah. And I had absolutely no idea that's what I was going to choose. But you can see that what I've got here, I've got headline type and I've got body type here as well. If I wanted to be even more specific, I could separate those two mood boards out and just have a headline type board and then a body type mood board as well. Color, I've picked out the key colors that I think I want to express just with the color picker in Figma, and that this could change, like absolutely 100% could change, because it could be once I start using them on a design, they don't look as vibrant, they don't look as wonderful as they do there. I might need to adapt it. There may be too many colors, all things like that. But what we're talking about is a stepping stone to get you to the next bit. Then for UI elements, I'm really just focusing on moments of interactivity, which bits are actually the user is going to interface with. So I'm thinking about bringing in my keyword of structure, and I'm still going with warmth as well. So I've got elements where I've got some rounded edges, but contrasting with the straight edges as well. Potentially using lines to divide things. And then I was really inspired by being quite playful with really big, like, call to action sections. So again, I could go even more specific with these. I could have a mood board just for CTA sections. Do you know what I mean? Then that for me is like a really good start to get started on a design for a website. You might want to, because we are in the context of creating a portfolio site, not just a personal brand, we are going to kind of slightly skip the designing your own logo bit. But I'm thinking that
that's the bonus lesson. If you stick around for 4 episodes of Lizzie, you might get a bonus how to design your logo.
Yeah, but it could be kind of a little byproduct of what happens here. Because sometimes just typing out your name in a really nice font is like better than spending weeks on crafting something. Anyway, there's a start on that, and it's 5:45.
Yeah, Rue just left, but she was saying, Lizzie, you are awesome, which, I think everyone here in this room and on the internet agrees with that statement, because you really are. She says, you've gotten my design brain fired up. Thank you so much.
Brilliant. That is what we like to hear.
Awesome.
Great.
Yeah. Well, what do you want to do? Do you want to? Did you have anything else to tackle, or should we leave the space for some Q&A?
Let's do some Q&A. Yeah.
Q&A. And
Whatever you
also, I just realized that I didn't finish 100%. I was like, how do I not have my three I don't know, features, my three keywords to work on this? And I was looking through the Notion. I was like, oh, I haven't finished the characteristics exercise. That's
Oh.
my bad. All right. Awesome. Thank you so much again, Lizzie. This was absolutely brilliant. No surprise there. Let's open up the floor to Q&A. So if you are new here in the space, in the room, feel free to use the emoji at the bottom of your gather screen. There's a white hand that says raise your hand. And then I'll come around and call out your name for you to ask any questions. So here we go. Let's start with Lucy giving the good example.
Oh, I need to unmute. Hi. Again, I'm of course being all inspired by this and thinking of my clients, not only of my portfolio. And so I'm thinking more mood boards. Do you also share these, the final ones maybe you selected with your clients, or is this sort of a secret internal process?
It totally depends. And you would usually gauge that by the client. So remember the one I was saying about the writer? She was super like visual. She could totally get that kind of thing. And she loved the mood boards and was like contributing to them. So in that context, absolutely. But some other clients you can gauge that they're not quite as able to interpret what you mean by a mood board. And for them, I would be cautious because I wouldn't want them to be like, what's that? Or like, can we have that? Or like, what does that mean? You know?
Yeah. Makes sense. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any more questions from the community? And also feel free, like if you do have a question, keep the hand up. It just stays up. You don't have to hold it on your mouse. It just stays up. Ashley.
How would you deal with if you're working with a client and you've really broken down to them the ideal, for example, the ideal color palette that would be absolutely perfect for their business, for the type of audience they're trying to attract, and they just really don't get it and just want things to be done their way, like you're trying to go with what are best web design practices, but as well as giving that their website its own personality, but they're very restrictive with how flexible they like to be with kind of understanding your vision as well as theirs. How do you deal with that? Or do you just kind of present them with their options, but then eventually just kind of pull away and say, okay, we'll do what you want to do?
It's a really hard one, isn't it? Yeah. And I've definitely been in that situation before where you're just like, no. Yeah. I think it is a balance because ultimately they are the client and they want you to do something that they like. And there are different levels of trust between you and a client. So you might have one client that will just literally wholeheartedly trust every decision you make, and they are wonderful, but they are also far and few between. So quite a lot of the time we are compromising. I think I would be open to what they have to say. I think for two reasons. One is they do actually know their business most of the time. And if they have a particular preference that they're not budging on, I would be open to listening to why that is. And it could be that it is founded in something that is not helpful, like my wife's sister doesn't like orange, therefore we can't pursue this route. And then it's like it's helpful to unpack why they've got to that point. And if it's again something that they're not going to budge on, it could just be like that. Forget it. It's just not going to go in my portfolio. I'm just going to move on, you know. But then it could be also that as you listen and as you engage, they also realize, oh yeah, maybe this isn't rooted in something that's practical. Potentially, but your willingness to listen is going to sway them more than imposing your ideas on them, for sure. By asking questions and engaging and seeing like, oh, and why do you think that? Or did you want to stand out from your competition, or would you prefer to look the same as everyone else? And then they're like, oh, we want to look different. And you're like, okay, you're going to need to change your color then. And so then it's like, yeah, it's definitely sort of hearing their motivation and their thoughts first, I would say, because it's, if they don't feel listened to, they're going to dig their heels in even more. That was quite a long-winded answer, but I hope that helped.
I understood completely. Thank you. Thank you.
Brilliant. We do have a plethora of questions from the forum. So if nobody else here wants to ask their question live, I can pull that up. Or if, we still have 8 minutes. So if anything comes up, or if, you feel the urge, feel free to ask away. Let me get a question from, I think I saw, yes, it's a really good question here from Sai Vandana. Should we include the branding of the projects in our case studies, or should we stick to the portfolio branding?
As in, like, when you're designing a portfolio, should you take on the branding of the project for those pages?
Yeah.
No wrong or right answer. As long as it's consistent.
Yeah, consistency. I guess that's the right answer, like consistency. I guess if you're starting to showcase a project using your own branding, then you want to have all these following projects following the same design style. But if you are changing it up according to your projects, then keep consistency and just keep on doing that.
Yeah.
All right, let me see. One more question here. One student question here. I only have my school projects, and many are asking about the real projects. What should I do?
Good question.
That
it's always the catch-22, isn't it? Because you're like, you need real projects to have a real project, but you need the real project to get the real project.
And you need 5 years of experience to land the junior role.
Yeah. Which is just painful when you feel you're stuck in a loop. My advice always is just the same on this, and it's not necessarily like the nicest. Well, I think it's actually quite fun. Is make your own projects. 100% start your own side business. 100% build your own resource and do the design for it. It's like we are in the creator economy where you can make things and publish them within hours. So make something and publish it and do the branding for it and make it as real as possible. Share it on social media and get people to follow it and make it into a real thing. And suddenly you've got a real project. And then do it again until you've got 2, and then build on them and keep on working them and turn them into businesses, and you won't even need to get a job. There you go.
Absolutely. And I guess if you're starting now, you're even more fortunate than maybe when we started a few years ago, because now you also have the beautiful thing of AI. And so ChatGPT can create those clients for you, can create those user personas for you. So you can have all these fictional GPTs that you can start designing for. That could be a good exercise.
Yeah. But also they don't have to be pretend. You can make real projects. And I think that's what is so exciting, because yeah, like you said, Claudia, or I was gonna say, like, even, I don't know, 5 years ago you couldn't do whatever, blah blah blah. But I think you could still create your own projects 5 years ago, 8 years ago, 10 years ago, and you can definitely do it today.
Absolutely. Who was I with at the Horniman? Was it with you the first time at the Horniman? But anyway, I remember I would just literally go to anyone and just be like, I like say, for example, a photographer. I really love your pictures here, your photos. Do you have a website? Oh no, I don't. But here's my business card. It's like, well, why don't you have a website? I'll make a website. Or I would go to the to the bakery down the road, and I love their pastries, and I'd be like, hey, I just want to help out the business. I'm gonna make a website. So yes, plenty of opportunities out there. Plenty of opportunities to help your own community, your local community as well. Rosie, got a question?
Hi Lizzie, like thank you for sharing, and you mentioned what you mentioned is really open up my mind. And my question is, it might be a little bit silly because I'm trying to build my own portfolio recently. Like you mentioned before, like when you're trying to do this kind of mood board, you find very interesting fonts, such as the one you mentioned, like a hugging, hugging font. And I was wondering how could I like make sure I could make it real and make it realized as a website, because I'm trying to build it through Webflow. I mean, when you design on paper or in Figma, you can do anything you want. But when you try to turn it to a real website, like the CSS, like this kind of, I don't know how do you make sure you can manage to do that when you design your own brand, to balance the technical problem with the like anything you want you mentioned in your head. Yeah, that's my question. Thank you.
That's a great question. Yeah, like how you kind of like can achieve those grand ideas that you set out to do. Yeah, especially when there's technical limitations, or even like you realize the font you've chosen is actually £600 and you're like, oh no, I can't have that font, that's
Yeah.
not fair. Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't actually check how much that hugging font costs. Yeah, great question. Now, if you do actually stick around, part of this course that we're working on right now, the wonderful Alessia is going to be taking over and doing a Webflow introduction. So, of how to master some of those technical basics of going from Figma to Webflow. So, this is the place to be for getting the skills to do that for sure. But I think as well, yeah, I guess because when I'm teaching, I'm teaching people with little to no design experience before joining the course that I teach on. And there's definitely this real gap between what you can imagine and what you can see as being a great design, and then what you can actually do. And particularly then what you can actually build in Webflow if you're brand new to Webflow as well. And I think that's called, what's it called? The gap. It's called the gap. And it can be a very painful thing. But I would say it's persistence, but then also the gap is also a good thing, because it means that you know what's good and you know what you want to achieve. And even though it's painful that maybe you're not there right now, it's actually a positive thing. And the more good design you look at, the more Webflow courses you do, the more you just get into the Webflow designer and play with things and just take a website, try and copy it, or follow a short tutorial on a specific thing. The smaller that gap gets, but then also the bigger it gets again, because you see the next thing that you want to make and the gap gets bigger again. So I guess the sort of long answer is it's painful, but keep going. And also aim high.
Okay, thank you very much. That's really positive. Thank you.
Great.
Beautiful. That should be in your affirmation series, aim high today. I
Yeah.
love that so much. Amazing. We're at time, but I did want to wrap up with one last question from Nasra, who I believe is also here in the gather. But in the form, she asked, "What are the key elements that should inspire or influence our mood board?" So to wrap it all up, what would you say?
The key elements that inspire or influence our mood board
Yeah.
are that they are rooted in our concept. So really visually express our concept using our visual keywords. If you can look at your mood board and see your keywords being expressed, you have succeeded. And also great design. So thinking about our 5 design principles: alignment, repetition, contrast, hierarchy, and balance. Balance that's symmetrical and also balance through tension. Look for those design principles everywhere, and that will be informing your mood boards.
Round of applause. Amazing. Thank you so much, Lizzie. You are absolutely brilliant. What should we? We now have more exercises to do. So if you're in the Floxies community on Monday, every Monday, we get together for a little focus co-working hour. So if you would like to tackle those exercises together with the community, you'll find the event in our Discord. I'm happy to work with you all. And so what are we expecting for next week? What we'll be working on?
Oh, next week. Yes, great question. We are thinking about wireframing out our portfolio. So we're going to be thinking about the content. We're going to think about what is going to be on there. That's pretty exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, building the bones.
Yeah.
Love that.
Oh yeah, and thumbnailing, sketching. So bring paper.com to the session next week.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Lizzie, and everyone else attending today. Have a fantastic rest of your week. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you so much. Bye bye.